Ines, do you want to talk about in the budget they released an overhaul of the skilled independent pathway? So that's 189, 190. Do you mind speaking to your perspective on what that's actually going to mean for people?
So this was introduced in the budget, about a week ago, and it is really a re-release of what's already been said.
Yep.
So that particular visa subclass hasn't been revamped since I believe 2012. So what is actually going to happen is in June of 2026, there will be a consultation paper that's released, and they will then tell us, as a result of that, what are the best things to change. And it's supposed to be as part of legislation by December. So by end of the year, we should have a really good indicator of what the new points test looks like. It's likely to have real positive impacts for people. Is it going to inflate points and create points where people are now at 1,000 points? Possibly. That's what it's kind of looking like.
Yeah.
I've seen, all of a sudden you get 100 points just for English, whereas now you get 20 points for English.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens with that, but we welcome the change, certainly. It will be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think they've spoken about skewing towards lower age, higher English, and higher education. And I think higher education done in Australia. And then the final thing is the work that the person actually does. So obviously doctors and dentists and people in the medical profession have always been having a really high rate of invitations.
Yeah. But it's the rest of them evidencing things.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how it changes and how to evidence it as well is interesting. If they'll get into the nitty-gritties of that. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, fair enough. So talk to me about partner visa decision-ready applications, because we got a notice from the department, April newsletter, which came via the Migration Institute of Australia. The Department of Home Affairs basically said, they're not going to give people the chance, let's just say. What's your perspective on this?
So this is the April newsletter from the Department of Home Affairs. Becomes infrequently. In any event, it summarizes the department's current perspective because of processing times being, up to 24 months and longer, which is a long, long time. A lot of applications sit without them being touched again. So agents and lawyers lodge them and then do nothing. So within Rocket and Ash, we don't do that. We've never really done that. We update them every 6 months. Or so 6 to 12 months at an absolute maximum. We've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
Just because you want a faster outcome. And what I can speak to is this morning we had a grant, and it's because it took 12 and a half months, where the average is about between 18 and 24. So the reason we like to do this is because at any given time, if the case officer picks it up, they can actually make a decision. So it's called decision ready, meaning everything is there. So you're going to have an adverse outcome if you don't provide this additional information. If you let your application sit and nothing's been provided, because they're going to say, well, nothing's been done for 18 months. Are you still in a genuine relationship? There is grounds to refuse. And they're essentially giving you a bit of a heads up to say, if you don't upload additional stuff, there'll be an issue. And they do not need to do an RFI. Although legally speaking, I don't believe they can do that. But it's not recommended. It's really important that if you lodged it yourself, keep providing additional evidence. If not, chat with us.
I think also, I sometimes speak to people who do a partner visa with an immigration agency as an example and might pay, $3,000. So they're really paying a very base rate. And I tend to notice when I talk to these people, because they'll often not get a lot of support post-lodgement. So they'll get support when they lodge, so basically from start to lodgement. Whereas Rocket and Ash, we've always priced our matters in a way where we give people support from start to finish. So updated AFPs, updated submissions where it's required, updating relationship evidence, which naturally costs more because every 3 to 6 months we have to go back to the client. I think we did an AFP we did an AFP for a client. I think on Friday we requested a new one. So
yes,
I think it's
proactive case management as opposed to oh, let's pick it up if there's a request. Those days are sort of, the department is indicating here those
Yeah.
dates are over.
Yeah.
So,
It sort of says here, when a request for information on natural justice is issued, it should be treated as a primary opportunity to address the matters raised.
yeah.
So yeah, I think in summary, right, Ines, like don't sit on an application, whether it's your own or you've paid somebody to do it. Update it, update the police checks if there is a change of scenario.
If it's longer than 12 months, it's already expired.
Yeah.
You need a new
Yeah.
one.
Okay, cool. All right. So what about decision ready applications for employer nominated 186? Because they're sort of same timeframes right now.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I remember when when it would take 4 months. I remember it would take a month. But now we are at, for both pathways, we're very close to 18 months.
Yeah. So they're saying 10 to 15 months for the TRT stream, and then for the DE 9 to 15.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long time.
It's a long
But
time.
I don't think that 9 is in any way accurate. However, what this means practically, you lodge, 15 months go by, you would have had new financials, you would have had a bunch of new BASs.
Yeah.
You know, the LMT is expired. You're not going to do LMT again, but you will provide as much information as possible. Police clearance is likely expired. Hold off on health examinations because they will be expired as well.
Yep.
All of these types of things are consideration. Again, I treat it the same way because I don't know what the department will do, and I try and make it as easy for the department as possible, i.e. they pick it up and they can make a decision. Similar to the partner visas, that's what it is. You need to make sure that it's updated. And that's our role, and we work together on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the final thing in this is Rocket and Ash is 8 years old next month, in less than 3 weeks to go.
Yes.
You know, it's been a big journey for us to get here. You know, we're obviously sitting in our office in the city. A lot's changed. I just want to ask you a bit about that because I'm not sure if we'll get to shoot, you know, right on the day. But in the last 8 years, like, you know, you went from a career at a really big, you know, the biggest immigration law firm in the world. You then did some other things. You then worked for some other big organizations. Then you started Rocket and Ash. What's been I think 2 questions. Number one, like, what's the best part about running your own practice now?
God, there's too many to say. I think for me, it's being able to choose my own clients, being able to stand up for myself. When things don't go right or go wrong, to make sure that it's within my moral compass.
Yeah.
And choosing right team members for us.
Yeah, definitely.
That the most fun part has been working with the team.
Yeah. Building the team, working the team.
Yeah. That's the most fun part because you're bouncing ideas.
Yeah.
Being a one-man show in immigration is horrible.
Yeah.
I would say for me.
Yeah. You just don't have that
Really
support.
lonely, very lonely. So I'm super excited to have people and to bounce ideas and to grow and to learn and do some. We'll talk to
we'll shoot with Michael soon.
Remember soon.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. But yeah, 8 years. It's older than our daughter.
It's older than our daughter. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about that client selection because we actually every day talk about this where, you know, we want to represent the right type of clients, and we do a lot of internal dialogue around people's circumstance, people's cases. You know, all these things to make sure that when we do work with somebody, we represent the right people so we can really put our effort into it. Yeah. And I think from what you've told me, you know, when you work at a big firm, even a smaller firm, and you've got a principal, they set the tone of that.
Yes. Yes. The leaders set the tone of who you will take on. It's not about being judgmental of what the client has or hasn't done. We've certainly had circumstances where things that have happened are really intense for people. Yeah. It's not about being judgmental. It's about being discerning. Yeah. I think for us, of what feels right. Because people get into bad situations. Some people get into bad situations and they feel righteous about it. And that's harder for me to defend. Whereas people who need your help, not in a, you know, or poor me way, but they know where they want to go and they're quite determined.
And they also take responsibility, right? They
That's
take
a big one.
responsibility for their errors and their ways in essence, and they're able to show up with a level of vulnerability to say, look, I'm in this situation, but I want to fix it and I need professional help. So
So that they're, those are the ones that actually go through to become clients. But yeah, it's
it's
been
been
a
a
journey.
been a journey. What do you think, when we get to 9 years or 10 years, like what do you foresee the next couple of years looking like for you and Rocket and Ash in general?
It's very hard to say. I still think there's a space and time for lawyers, legal advice. AI is valuable, and it's a tool that we can use very, very carefully. However, do I think AI is going to take over the firm and our role? I find it very hard to. The complexity and the human, because you have another human making a decision on the other side.
Mm,
It really is at their discretion. So,
yeah.
and it's up to you to help them to make that decision in your favor. So, I see the firm growing. I see interesting people joining our firm, like as there have been, and that's part of the excitement for me. Young people who want to learn
Yeah.
and who are excited to learn.
So if you're young and watching this and you want an opportunity, we're happy to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
We love, we've got actually a new graduate lawyer
Tomorrow.
joining us for a trial tomorrow, coming in from University of Western Sydney. So, it's actually really fun building this sort of, I call it the dream team of incredibly smart and talented and hardworking immigration practitioners. I agree with you about AI. My background's tech, so it's really interesting for me how, everybody's sort of saying, well, AI is going to replace everyone's job. And I think in the legal industry and the type of work that we have moved into, in essence, is less of about pressing the button, lodging somebody's application and see you later. Just like we talked about, with the partner visa, it's about, case management. It's about updating information. It's about updating circumstance for people. Somebody lodges a partner visa and halfway through they get charged with something, and that obviously impacts the application. And then ChatGPT unfortunately isn't able to discern exactly how to approach that situation. So yeah, for me, it's been a really interesting 8-year period. Being in business with your partner, your spouse, is really tricky and really rewarding. We've had some really wonderful days, some really tough days too. And I think for me, I look at the next couple of years, keep growing, more complicated matters, and also sort of setting a bit of a culture around, like, what does immigration look like within Australia? Because there are, irrespective of whatever government, there are integrity issues that both sides, I think, admit to. There is an issue with certain integrity issues in the system that I think, in the space, we can hopefully play a role to say, hey, maybe that can be adjusted and resolved. It's never necessarily black and white.
Yeah.
It's all shades of gray. And I think that no matter what political party's in power, there's people who are in difficult situations, sometimes through no fault of their own, who need fundamental help. And I think for us at Rocket and Ash, it's about like the more, the better the team, the better we can take on some of these matters.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
all of us enjoy it. All right, any final thoughts? What about how handsome I look in the purple hat? Is that in there?
Right, purple.
To the commenter who said I don't look, the content's great, but I don't look very professional in my hat. I'm sorry, sir. I'm always going to wear the hat now. Jack Henderson, if you're watching this video, I got that from you, mate. So thank you very much. I saw your greedy landlord hat, so I thought I've got to get a Rocket and Ash hat.
Well, that's what he had.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was on Channel 7 this week talking about
You better tag him.
Yeah, I'll tag him. He was on straight after the budget. It was like, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. He had greedy landlord on his hat. And I thought, oh, that's going to get a lot of people going, and whether you like him or not, you like the content. He's certainly out there in a very prominent way talking about what it's like being a property investor. And I think there's a lot of kudos to people, out there in the arena.
Sorry, I don't have an opinion. Don't know who he is.
No, don't worry. But what about the hat?
Sorry.
The hat, though.
The hat
Yeah?
was great.
All right. I think we can finish up.
Thank you.